This will be a quick review on the Inergy Flex 1500 solar generator. This video has been a long time coming. I bought this, or at least put a deposit on it, in September 18th of 2020 and just finally got it delivered last week, and filming this video on November 13th of 2021. So more than 12 months from when I put the deposit to when it finally got ordered. That partly was due to the fact that it was a pre-order. They were not actually being produced yet, but also the delivery time kept getting pushed later and later because of everything going on in the world currently. So eventually, I think the production to lead time to delivery time will go down, but for now expect still a delay from start to finish if you do end up deciding to buy one of these units. So we'll go quickly over some of the capabilities, maybe some of the pros and cons over gas versus solar generators, the layout, and some of the capabilities that I've seen from having been using it for just a couple days over the last week. So Inergy, this is their third generation solar generator. The word solar generator, or the name, indicates that you have, in addition to just a battery conversion to either AC or DC output, you also have a way of replenishing the power stored by the batteries. So this unit, as is, without the superchargers, can handle as much as 400 watts of solar input. Obviously it can put out as much as 1500 watts continuous for a 3000 watt peak or surge. So it would take a lot of solar panels to be able to run it indefinitely. Also, you have to bear in mind that in order for a solar generator to continue to power or be replenished with power, the sun needs to be up, and depending on where you live, you can look up, like, geographically what kind of peak solar hours you can expect depending on where you live. Because not all parts of the world have the same amount of daylight or peak sun capability. But if you, like us, don't have a huge power draw required, like we bought this specifically for hurricane season, that we can also use it on the weekends when we go camping to power a small refrigerator. For hurricane season we bought it because we were expecting, for, like typically happens in Florida, bigger tropical storms or hurricanes knock out power for a couple days. All we needed really to power during those times is just our chest freezer in the garage, and then maybe our freezer in the house for just a couple hours a day to keep everything from thawing out. So based on those power requirements, we didn't think needing to buy a gas generator is worth it. Also, this is way more portable than a gas generator. It is heavy for its size, but the dimensions are only 14 by 8 by 9.4. It is 29 pounds, so fairly dense for the size, but it's way more portable than a gas generator would be. Also, you can much more easily take it with you in the car or keep it in the house. You don't have to put it outside for it to run. You don't have to replenish it with gas. Typically, most gas generators run at maybe like 3/4 of a gallon per hour. So on average, you can only run 7, maybe 8 hours before you have to put another 5 gallons in it, which can get expensive with gas prices in the mid-3s right now. You're looking at, for running a gas generator, it costs about $2 an hour for a total of $50 a day. You also need to store all of that gas and transport all that gas. And in Florida, when there's a hurricane in, or expected or forecast to come, all the gas stations will sell out. So unless you've stored up all of that gas, you're going to be out of luck when it comes time to need to power your generator if you don't have that gas saved up. Transporting gas can be messy. Gas is obviously toxic. Every year people die trying to run gas powered generators in their house. They die of carbon monoxide poisoning. Gas generators, you need to tune up. So in addition to the oil changes every roughly 100 hours, you're supposed to be changing spark plugs and air filters, and they make a lot more noise than this. This is silent unless you're pulling a lot of power, then it will start kicking on various stages of the cooling fans. But if you're using fairly low power output, then it's a lot quieter regardless of a gas generator, but if you're using fairly low power output, then it's completely silent. If you do expand with more batteries, then you're expecting roughly 5 inches more in height. You're not supposed to do any more than 5 total stacked, so if you do expand to the stated capability of being able to support 96 flex batteries, you can only do 5 in each stack, and then you'd have to just line them up next to each other. But that gives you a ton of capacity, obviously, if you do buy that many battery expansions. As far as the layout of the unit itself, along the top row is the DC portion of the kit. So you've got 2 USB Type-C 60 watt USB ports with PD and QC 3.0. Next to that, you got 2 USB-A ports with QC 2.0, then 2 5.5 by 2.5 millimeter DC outputs for things like their Basecamp LED lights. We'll talk about that in a little bit, about the Basecamp LED lights, and then future accessories apparently, then the LCD screen, which gives you the system capacity, the discharge or charge rates, how much remaining time you can expect on your current charge or discharge rate. Next to that, you've got the 2 cigarette port outputs that you'd have like in your car. However, these are regulated to 13.8 volts of DC output. Those are 10 amps. Then the DC power button. The next row down is the AC side, so 6 110 to 120 watt grounded VIC outlets with the actual power button for that. And then down here is just the battery, so this independently will allow you to check the battery capacity of each additional flex battery that you have connected to the system without needing to turn on the rest of the system. Any of these components, turning them on will start to drain the battery, so turning on the DC side doesn't draw as much power as trying to run the inverter does. This will show you here at 94%. Battery capacity currently, as soon as you plug in the wall charger, it will show you the charge rate. As the battery starts to get closer to full, the charge rate goes down fairly noticeably. It was charging between 50 and 60 watts originally, but now that there's only a couple of percent left before the battery's full, it's charging only 14 watts, which according to this will take 4 hours to complete the charge. If you turn on the inverter side, you can see that there's a small discharge, so if you're not using the AC portion of the flex solar generator, then probably don't have the inverter on, because it's discharging at 6 watts, and without even powering anything, the estimated runtime is 167 hours. So with that off, no discharge rate, you can turn the battery on or batteries on, and you can monitor each of them separately. When they are connected via the connection point between the 2 units, they will regulate and balance, self-balance, both for charging and discharging. But if you have them connected separately, or if you don't have them connected and you're having stored separately, it gives you a better way of indicating the capacity. Like for us, the way we set this up was we bought a second flex battery, which has not been delivered yet, and we expect for camping to just bring this 1 unit, less than 30 pounds, easier to store because of the form factor. But then for home use, wanting more capacity and not needing to be as portable, we are planning to stack more batteries for higher overall output. And because potentially, depending on what we're using it for, batteries might be at different charge rates, so it'll make it easier for us. As far as output, so as you start plugging in more components, obviously it's going to pull more power and have a bigger discharge rate. But just to give you an idea of the power draw on something like the little Basecamp light, it's discharging at 7-8 watts. So estimated runtime for one of them is 132 hours and 16 minutes. You can daisy chain more, so obviously the discharge rate probably go down by multiples of 8 and would decrease your estimated runtime. But I was pretty impressed with how bright this little thing is. You probably won't need a ton of them. Also, as you plug in more components, like AC components, like this little power tool battery charger, into the AC side, you have to turn on the inverter. and the discharge rate will go up fairly noticeably to power that. As you can see, it's still completely silent, but this also isn't pulling a lot of power total between the DC power draw for the base camp light and the battery charger. It's discharging at about 50 watts, which is what typically like most laptop chargers would discharge at. You can see at that discharge rate, expecting 19 hours and 30 minutes roughly at 92% battery voltage or battery capacity. You can simultaneously charge and discharge the system. So I do not have the solar panels yet. When I do get the solar panels and the other accessories that I ordered, as well as the additional batteries, I'll make a full review and give you a better idea of like what kind of performance capacity I've actually been seeing. But what I'm expecting at least is 200 watts of solar input plus 50 watts of normal charge capacity via the wall charger, so a total of 250 watts input during peak sun hours at least. So I expect to be able to support a decent amount of output, and then maybe conserve power overnight if it ends up not being enough. For the next portion of the video, I'll show you using a hair dryer some of the more high end of the capability of this this system. Probably post this portion of the video without sound so you don't have to listen to the hair dryer, but just to show you what system's capable of. Disconnect this, move this out of the way. It's a 1600 watt hair dryer. Zoom in on the screen. So that noise that you can hear is the cooling fans on the unit. Obviously a much higher power draw, more than what's designed for. It's supposed to be running at 1500 watts continuous, and that's even still asking a lot. You'd expect lower number of charge discharge cycles if you are running this at the max capacity. I'll run the hair dryer again and show you that the surge is even higher than 1500 watts, but go straight to high. But if you're using less than the design capacity, something less than 1500 watts, obviously you can expect a little bit more runtime. So we'll simulate that with just a lower power setting on the hair dryer again. So if you're running something like a refrigerator that doesn't run 24/7, the longer you can keep the door closed, the cooler it's going to stay, the less it's going to have to run. Most full-size refrigerators are closer to like 600 watts, maybe 700 watts. So you can expect something along the lines of what that hair dryer showed for the capacity if you're not simultaneously inputting a charge input, if you're just relying solely on the battery capacity and just charging without continuously replenishing or recharging. One of the cooler capabilities of the system is that you can simultaneously charge via the wall charger directly into the flex batteries independently down here. Obviously the batteries are disconnected from the top unit, so while charging the battery you can also charge into the solar input. So the battery's still charging, and you can plug into the solar input on the actual power module. This charge input, the cable will come with the chargers if you buy, or the solar panels if you buy the panels from them, but it's called an EC8 port. Plugs right into the side of that, allows you to do up to 400 watts of charging. And through here, through the MPPT charge controller, it's for between 14 and 90 volts DC of solar input at 30 amps, maximum battery charge rate. So if you have that many solar panels that you can actually input that much capacity, then you can expect a charge rate at maybe 3 hours from completely dead to fully charged. If you start expanding your system with the superchargers, then you can triple that capacity all the way up from 400 watts to 1200 watts. So then you're charging batteries in potentially as little as 1 hour. If you start adding more batteries though, then you obviously have to increase that solar charging capacity if you want to have really short recharge cycles. But as far as getting an idea of the maximum charge capacity on this system without the solar, without the superchargers, if you're normally getting close to 50 watts from the wall charger plus 200 watts from a pair of 100 watt solar panels, then charging at 250 watts for 1000 watt hours of battery capacity will take as much as 4 hours of charge time from completely dead to fully charged. If you're using it at the same time, that will take longer. Like I mentioned earlier, as the battery gets full, at least the DC wall inverter charge method starts to slow down drastically. Once I get the solar panels, I'll be able to actually show you if that slows down as well as the battery gets close to full. But I do not have the solar panels yet. I do not have the additional battery yet. The other thing, if you buy their quick wall charger, it bypasses this input on the side and goes directly in via an EC8 input. So then utilizes the MPPT charge controller, which gives you that higher, faster charge rate than just the standard 50-ish, all the way down to as low as 15 watts of charge directly into the battery, bypassing the charge controller and the head unit. Overall, I'm fairly impressed with the unit. It lives up to all of the stated specifications. I haven't run it from a full charge to discharge. I haven't had it long enough to need to do that. And I also don't have all of the components that I paid for yet. That should be arriving in the next week or so. So once I get everything delivered and have enough time to test everything, in addition to multiple batteries stacked, I'll have a more thorough review video giving you a better than just first impression. If there's anything that you guys want me to test for or talk about on the next video, leave those in the comments. Stick around, because in the next week or two I should be able to put that more thorough, complete review video out. Thanks for watching.